There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thanks. Please be seated. Honorable members, the first item on the order paper is questions addressed to the Deputy President. The first question has been asked by the Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable, the Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, honorable members. As required by Rule 129(2) of the National Assembly, I was consulted on the scheduling of the motion of no confidence that was debated and voted upon in this House prior to the scheduling of the motion itself. And I must say that as leader of government business, I was not consulted by the Speaker on how the vote should be conducted. Let me say that I was very tempted on a number of occasions to try and find out what the Speaker's decision was, but I held myself back. Each time I saw her, I kept looking at her posture to see whether there was some indication on her decision. And one time, I should confess, I said, Speaker, you remember the Constitutional Court said that you have a decision to make. And upon saying that, she gave me a very, very strange look, basically telling me that it's none of your business. I will decide whichever way. And as you are no doubt aware, the Constitutional Court made it clear that the decision on whether or not the conduct of the vote on the motion of no confidence should be by secret or open was the Speaker's decision to make. So in the end, all I ever saw of her decision was when she announced it on television. So I had no inkling whatsoever what her decision was. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any supplementary questions? The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, we welcome the fact that the vote had taken place via secret ballot. The natural consequence of that is that the President has already been on record saying that all the members who voted in secret must then face a witch hunt. The real crisis is that, in fact, the people's business is now being held hostage by this witch hunt, where even people like Dr. Makosi Khoza have been removed from portfolio committees. My question to you, Deputy President, is whether or not you support this witch hunt, and if you don't, what actions are you going to take to ensure that the people's business is continued by this Parliament rather than this witch hunt that seeks to disrupt where the Parliament is going to work?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, as far as I'm concerned, there is no witch hunt in the African National Congress. The ANC has accepted that the vote has happened as it did happen, and clearly, like any other political party, it has its own internal processes that must be respected, just as we respect internal processes in other parties. So let the ANC continue with its own internal processes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Shope.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, yes, there is a witch hunt. that ANC is doing to their own members. Dr. Makosi Khoza has been removed as the chair of the DPSA, and she is removed by the ANC, let alone that the processes in Parliament were not followed. Honorable Derek Hanekom is being threatened now by the ANC to be removed as the ANC chairperson in that committee, DC. Thirdly, the Speaker of Parliament, the Speaker who's the national chair of the ANC, is being victimized by the ANC. So don't tell us there's no witch hunt, because those comrades and those members, they were exercising their rights following the Constitutional Court. So what are you saying about that, Deputy President? You must come clean. Are you with the hand, or are you protecting the members of Parliament who are exercising their democratic right? Oath of office in Parliament, you must come clean now. We must know from you.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, I did say that there is no witch hunt, and the ANC should be allowed to proceed with its own internal processes, because these are party political processes. It would be, I think, very exciting for all other members seated here to hear the internal doings within the African National Congress, where we would outline precisely what is happening with Honorable Derek Hanekom, what's happening with this one and that one. But we are not in a space and time to be able to do that. So allow the ANC to carry on with its own internal processes, and that's all I can say on this matter.
The Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, with respect to your reply, you chaired our Constitutional Assembly that was tasked with drafting our final Constitution. Our Constitution is the supreme law of this Republic. Law or conduct inconsistent with it is invalid, and the obligations imposed by it must be fulfilled. Now, the Constitutional Court ruling is very clear and was very clear. But in the meantime, your president is reported as saying, and I quote, that why I am saying the ANC constitution must be applied so that people who have double standards can make way for people who are loyal to the ANC. Now, if I listen to your answer, Deputy President, my question to you is, who comes first, the constitution of a country and the Constitutional Court ruling, or the constitution of the African National Congress?
The Honorable Deputy President.
I think we've often said that on matters like these, I mean, we are all South Africans. We're all South Africans, and we've subjected ourselves to the Constitution of the Republic. And in the end, the Constitution of the Republic is the supreme law of our country. So our country comes first. We are South Africans first, and thereafter we are everything else. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, I'm going to leave the matters that the ANC have to answer to the ANC. But having said that, Honorable Deputy President, it's common cause that these motions of no confidence were placed before this House because many of us in this House, and some from that side, are concerned about state capture, about corruption, and those kinds of things happening. Now, you as leader of government business, Honorable Deputy President, have a very important role to play in all of this. And maybe you can provide us some answers so we don't have to have motions of no confidence. So my question, through you, Honorable Speaker, is what have you, Honorable Deputy President, done as leader of government business, as well as chairperson of the Interministerial Committee on State-Owned Enterprise Reform? Have you instituted your own process of investigation into state capture, as this directly relates to entities and businesses that fall within your mandate? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
On a point of order. Yeah.
What's the
Yeah,
point of
Khatebe.
order? Who's calling for a point of order?
It's Khatebe.
Oh, Honorable Khadebe.
I'm rising on rule 142.6. The rule is very clear. A supplementary question must arise direct from the original question, and the reply therefore may not be constitute a new question. So really, this question which is asked by Honorable Singh is different from what is there on the question paper. Can you please rule on that? Thank you.
What you are saying is indeed true, but if the Deputy President feels like answering, he can go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I did get a sense that this is a completely new question. It possibly relates to another question that is going to be asked, which I have to reply to. And I would say possibly it should arise when I have to reply to the question I think that's raised by Honorable Tlowama. Thank you, Honorable
Thank
Speaker.
you. I proceed to question number 26, which has been asked by the Honorable Bengu Kombe. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, our efforts to build a democratic, non-racial, and non-sexist society are undermined by the persistence of patriarchal structures and practices in our country. It is therefore essential that we work to eradicate patriarchy in all its forms in our country. To a significant extent, patriarchy continues to define relations within the home, where women are often consigned to play inferior roles, such as perform unpaid domestic labor. The constraints that are imposed on them limits their opportunities to find work and to access a number of opportunities, including educational opportunities. The unequal economic relations in the home are extended to the exclusion and segregation of women in the labor market as well. Women in South Africa continue to face challenges in increasing and in key and meaningful senior management positions, as well as decision-making positions. In many cases, women earn less than men for similar work. The report on the status of women shows that where women are employed, it is often in precarious and insecure positions. As a result, women are more likely to live below the poverty line than males, with rural women being much more vulnerable than their urban counterparts. Patriarchal relations are also prevalent in institutions like the state, where men tend to dominate and where, despite formal equality, there is often a bias against women. Gender-based violence is one of the most alarming manifestations of patriarchy. It is exacerbated by institutional norms and social conditioning which pressure men to have political, financial, social dominion over women. Because the various forms of patriarchy are interrelated, government has been working with civil society to deal with the challenges in a holistic manner. While the family unit, Madam Speaker, is an important starting point, we cannot focus only on the family in attempts to reverse patriarchal attitudes. The democratic government has promulgated a number of legislative instruments and has embarked on a number of programs to address the structural manifestations of patriarchy. And some of the efforts that have been embarked upon include the provision of more affordable, responsive finance, ensuring women are the primary beneficiaries of government social grants, mobilizing women farmers into agricultural co-ops. And in February this year, the Department of Higher Education embarked on its sexual and gender-based violence dialogues in institutions of higher learning and TVET campuses to address the challenges faced by students and staff members regarding this phenomenon. This program complements the She Conquers campaign, which we launched last year under SANAC, which aims to empower young women to make decisions that reduce their vulnerability to HIV infection and to improve their educational and economic position. Government has launched a series of dialogues that are aimed to understand the lived experience of women, children, and community members, as well as to gather lessons that can be learned in addressing all of these. Now, through partnerships with men's organizations, men are challenging themselves and other men on patriarchal attitudes, and the ability of these interventions to effectively reverse patriarchal relations, however, depends on the collective commitment of all of us in society. I understand that we are also going to have here in Parliament an International Women's Conference next week, which will reflect on the progress made on the continent in absorbing women in the economy and creating gender-sensitive working environments. Madam Speaker, the struggle against patriarchy is being taken up across society, in public institutions and in the media and in homes. Working together as men and women, we will succeed in building a non-sexist society in which all can enjoy equal rights and opportunities. I thank you.
The Honorable Pengu Kombe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, the issues of patriarchy and gender-based violence is a global struggle, experiences which will be shared at the International Women's Conference being hosted by this Parliament on the 29th to 30th of August this year. The ANC-led government has implemented programs such as 365 days of activism to fight the scourge of the killings of women and children, and which requires the support from all of us. Honorable Deputy President, having launched the men's dialogues in Soshanguve, could you share with us the outcomes of the dialogues and how the 6-point plan launched by the Minister of Police will assist in fighting gender-based violence against women and children? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Deputy President.
We had a great opportunity in Soshanguve just a week ago, Madam Speaker, to bring together under the umbrella of Sanarela, which is the religious leaders who are united under the SANAC umbrella, to engage with issue of gender-based violence, substance abuse, in a dialogue with men. You could say that this was a men's parliament, and it was largely composed of young men who were talking amongst themselves about issues of HIV as well as TB, but more importantly about gender-based violence as well as substance abuse. We found that in Soshanguve, there's quite a lot of substance abuse utilization, or rather substance abuse, and the men in that dialogue resolved that we will launch a huge campaign to sensitize young people in Soshanguve, not only on substance abuse, but also on gender-based violence, and we'll have a huge march in that township. The resolutions that were taken were also to continue to work with various sectors in society, as well as to work with the police, and therefore the plan that has been announced by the Minister of Police fits in very well with a campaign that the community amongst our people in Soshanguve want to embark upon. The other important thing, of course, was the raising of the level of consciousness, particularly among young men in that dialogue about issues of rape, issues of the killing of women, gender-based violence, and substance abuse. We found that to be a most meaningful process, which process would be very, very good if it was spread throughout the country. where you get young men and older men, of course, talking amongst themselves. The other important issue as I conclude on this matter was the problem that was raised about absent fathers. Many young people, young men particularly, raised the issue of the absence of their fathers in their lives, whose presence could bring a very positive influence on their lives. So it was a deep quest amongst young men to have fathers participating in their lives, in their own development, socially and otherwise. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We now pass on to question number, supplementary questions. Honorable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and to you, Deputy President. I think you would agree with me that all the government programs that you've just outlined has been severely undermined by your government's decision to grant diplomatic immunity to Dr. Grace Mugabe, who has been alleged to have severely beaten up and injured a South African woman. And I would like to know from you, Honourable Deputy President, what type of government would stand on the side of an alleged abuser while denying justice to Ms. Engels? And I think as leader of government business, you must provide us some answers today and clarity on this decision. And maybe you can also indicate whether you support the decision to grant diplomatic immunity to Dr. Grace Mugabe and what you think this decision will actually do for our fight against gender-based violence in South Africa. Honourable Deputy.
Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. As I understand, the decision was taken in terms of the internationally recognized immunity regulations, which regulations and conventions are understood and also well recognized at the UN level. So that was the instrument that was utilized for this purpose. Now, clearly, it has its own sub-regulations in terms of its own efficacy. Now, it's the first time that we have utilized this type of convention, and a lot can be said on a pro and against it, and in the end, there needs to be the clarity that there is.
Honourable members.
The clarity that there is on this matter is not full and complete, in the sense that, yes, in certain environments it is applied, in others it is not applied. So it happens to have been applied here in South Africa, and our government and international department granted this immunity, which enabled Mrs. Mugabe then to depart in the way that she departed. Thank you very much.
Honourable Filtane.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, given the fact that you get in provinces like Limpopo, KZN, and Eastern Cape, quite large groups of men who believe that their customs and norms and practices are being trampled upon by this so-called modern way of dealing with people's rights. How do you then balance making sure that those beliefs are not trampled upon, but at the same time protecting the rights of women? What evidence, in short, is available to prove that the country is actually moving in that direction, given those dynamics in our country? I thank you.
Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, there is that challenge throughout our country, particularly in areas where our people still live in very traditional settings, where they believe that certain age-old practices need to continue. But what we did countenance as we were drafting the Constitution was that the Constitution of our country grants rights and equal rights, for that matter, to all citizens who live here. And in the end, it is this document that embodies our rights that should trump even old age practices that seek to dilute the rights of South Africans, be they women or men, and particularly in our case as we are dealing with these challenges where certain practices seek to dilute the rights of women and, say, children. They need and should be trumped by our Constitution. Our Constitution is supreme, and where those practices still persist, we need to raise the level of consciousness of those who still pay heed to those old age traditions where women and children are treated in the old way, particularly where women were regarded as people who did not have any rights whatsoever. So the Constitution trumps all those very backward practices, but at the same time, we need to be taking those who still wish to practice them along with us, raise their level of understanding, raise their level of consciousness, because after all, they are just as South Africans as all of us are, and we need to raise their level as well to come to the level of appreciating what the Constitution sets out with regard to the rights of women and children. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Chairperson, Speaker, thank you very much. Deputy President, you have alluded to the prevalence of some men's movement and also civil society organizations who are involved in dealing with patriarchy. And of course, some of these are dealing with the father-son relationship. What is it that the government is doing to ensure that these are assisted, legally assisted, in order for them to deal with patriarchy?
Honorable Deputy President.
Well, Honorable Speaker, with regard to dealing with them in a legal way, I guess there's a lot that can be done. But right now, I was talking more about the dialogues that are taking place. Within the SANAC arena, we are spreading out a number of dialogues on precisely this type of issue. And my take is that if these dialogues and these discussions are spread throughout the country, we can enhance a deeper level of understanding and working together. And I guess at the legal level, at the legislative level, we can begin advancing to a level where we inculcate this type of change of behavior. But right now, what I've been exposed to and wonderfully exposed to has been these dialogues amongst men and these dialogues of young men and older men in which younger men have been found to benefit a great deal. And I'm rather glad that they've been raised, they've been organized under the SANAC umbrella, but I think they need to be spread to be rooted in many other organizations that deal with the lives of our people throughout the country. It should not only just be in the SANAC fold. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We now come to question number 27, asked by the Honorable Klowama.
Madam Speaker, any knowledge that I have about the alleged influence of a certain family at Eskom has been obtained from published reports on the matter. This includes the Public Protector's State of Capture report, as well as several media articles produced by investigative journalists. And may I say, recently, of course, quite a lot of this information has been spewing out from these emails that all of us have been reading. So this has formed the basis of the information that myself and I guess many others have been exposed to. As I've said in this House before, it is critical, and I repeat it, that a judicial commission of inquiry should be established as a matter of urgency to probe these and other claims of corporate capture of state institutions. The law enforcement agencies themselves need to give these allegations their full attention. And Madam Speaker, where crimes have been committed, those responsible must be prosecuted. Parliament should be commended also for initiating its own inquiries in some of these matters, as they have come out affecting quite a number of departments or ministries. These allegations, in the end, are so serious, and they are also of great concern to many South Africans, and their implications are so far-reaching that they need to be thoroughly investigated without any fear or favor. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Tlowama.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Deputy President. Let me explain to you why I think your lack of direct condemnation equals conspiracy or Guptaphobia. The whole body of ESCOM has got Gupta tattoos designed by the President. But yet you have never came out and say directly the Guptas are wrong. The President has embraced these rotten tomatoes, but you had never said in public, Mr. President, you are out of order. ESCOM has become a victim of arbitrary desires of the Gupta family. Instead, you have chosen to become a modern King Pilato and wash your hands. Why, Deputy President?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I am not here to win a contest through which I would please Honorable Tlowama. And on matters that affect the Republic and the interests of our people, you will find that many who are on this side have been able to speak out, because it is important that we continue to represent what is in the view of our people correct. And we have, from time to time, where certain things that are wrong have been done, spoken out. And it is in this case that I have spoken out and said a judicial commission of inquiry needs to be appointed. And this matter has been also canvassed with President Jacob Zuma, and the President is on record as having said that he is applying his mind to this matter. So, Honorable Tlowama, these matters, as we have said, are matters of great concern to all of us as South Africans. And we therefore have often said that they need to be investigated so that the truth can set those who may well be implicated free, so that the truth can come out. And the Public Protector's report has initiated the process and indeed has suggested that a commission of inquiry should be set up. And we believe that a commission of inquiry indeed will be set up, and it will go to the bottom of all these matters that are of great concern. So let us wait until the commission of inquiry is set up by the person who is authorized to set it up. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, my question is simple. When can we expect a commission of inquiry to be set up? And then, whilst the country awaits the outcome of Mr. Zuma's lawfare application to the Public Protector's recommendation of a Judicial Commission of Inquiry, some of those suspected are busy selling their assets left, right, and centre. So what ethical actions, investigations, sanctions, discipline, if any, are being taken to stop the rot? And if there is no action taken, why not?
Honourable Deputy President.
Well, the answer is simple in relation to when is the commission going to be set up. The commission will be set up when the President sets the commission up. That's when the commission will be set up. And I think we need to give the President the time and the space to set up this commission. Now, in relation to the other matter that you raised, that assets are being sold and all these things, clearly, everything that is happening should not be able to escape the attention and the scrutiny of a commission that will be set up. And these matters are happening out in the open, and in the end, there will be no place to hide. Once that commission is set up, it will have the power, the authority, and the ability to scrutinize everything. And in the end, it will be an independent commission that will do its work as effectively as possible. So, date and time will be determined by the President himself. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Mazzoni.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, given the fact that it's now patently obvious that the Gupta family en masse is selling their South African assets with a view of leaving the country shortly, given the fact that the wheels are turning exceptionally slowly when it comes to the state capture investigations in Parliament, and you yourself can't give us a date or a time that the President is going to set up this commission, given the fact that the interministerial committee that was headed by Minister Masuta was a monumental failure into looking at Eskom, as the leader of government business, can you give us the guarantee that you will ensure that every single one of the parliamentary portfolio committees is adequately resourced to make sure that their investigation into state capture in fact happens? And more importantly, don't you think you should have agreed to the request that we had a full-scale ad hoc committee in Parliament into state capture?
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The issue of resourcing portfolio committees looking into this matter really is a matter for Parliament to determine and to decide on. The leader of government business will not and should not be able to interfere in how Parliament arranges its own matters, particularly on how it allocates resources. So that one, I would say, should be left to Parliament. The issue of the ad hoc committee, I think that question has now passed because the portfolio committees have now, in one way or another, started work on this matter. And in the end, should the Commission of Inquiry be set up, Parliament will then need to discuss how it deals with the work that is being done by the portfolio committees in conjunction with what the Commission of Inquiry will be doing. Because it is also possible, should the Commission of Inquiry be set up sooner rather than later, that there will be a duplication of efforts and tasks. So Parliament will need to make that assessment. But I think, Madam Speaker, what I think is clear is that this matter is not going to be left, and be swept under the carpet. This matter is going to be dealt with in one way, shape, or another. It is a matter that requires attention, and we are going to give attention to this matter, and it's a question of when that Commission of Inquiry will be appointed, and I'm sure it will be appointed soon.
The Honourable Esterhazy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Oh, Deputy President, you said in most all your answers that the Commission of Inquiry is going to be elected, the law must take its course. But is it really going to be dealt with? Don't you think it's obscene the level of protection this family enjoys courtesy of the state? They've got no regard for the constitution of this country, are willing to sacrifice the credibility of key institutions like ESCOM that was mentioned on the altar of personal enrichment to use patronage politics and worse, to retain or gain control of all levels of power. Now, saying that they survive on that level of protection, will you, sir, as a leader of government and business, would you be allowed to investigate or even deal with this? Thank you, Madam.
Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, let me say that nobody, no family is above the law. So even in this case, as I said earlier, whoever is found to have committed any misdemeanor should and will be dealt with. So I want to explode the myth in your mind that some people enjoy the protection of the state. And if that was so, then we are no longer governed by the rule of law. We are a state that is governed by the rule of law, and in the end, nobody should ever think that they can escape the long arm of the law. So that should be obliterated from your mind. As leader of government business, my task is clearly set out. I have no power, no authority, and no ability to investigate. The task of investigation is left to our authorities, our criminal justice authorities, or to a commission that can be set up by the President. So please don't give me a task that I do not have, nor would I ever wish to have that task at all. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, question number 28 has
Point
been
of
asked
order.
by the
Honorable
Honorable
Speaker.
Gwabaza.
Just a point of order, Honorable
What's
Speaker.
the point of order, Honorable?
Please, Honorable
Ndozi?
Speaker, check the table staff there. They are sabotaging us. We
What's
were in the
happening?
line when we checked with them. We were number 2 as follow-up in this question. And now we are nowhere to be found. There is a man with a bow tie there that is sabotaging us. Please, Speaker. He looks new. We were supposed to follow up on this question. No. How can you have parliament where EFF doesn't speak? It's impossible.
7, 8, and 9.
That's where EFF is.
In terms of pressure.
Okay.
Thank you, Speaker.
May I just give you some information? We've already had 4 follow-up questions. And after that, in the list that is here, is Honorable Swart, Honorable Mabika, Honorable Dlamini, Honorable Shibambu,
Thank you very much.
and Honorable Thope.
Come to me. Yeah, it's fine.
Those are the people, and those are actually part of those we can't take, because we now have to move to the next question. So we come to question number 28, which has been asked by the Honorable Gwabaza. And we now ask the Deputy President to favor Honorable Gwabaza with a response.
Honorable Speaker, one of the measures to improve confidence in state-owned enterprises is the ongoing implementation of SOE reforms, which, amongst other things, Madam Speaker, are aimed at how best we can stabilize the finances of these state-owned enterprises, how we can strengthen their balance sheets, how we can stabilize their governance and also streamline their operations. Now, as part of the Presidential Review Committee recommendations, the interministerial committee that was set up and which is chaired by the Deputy President, we've developed several measures to advance the reform of SOEs. In July 2017, the Minister of Finance provided timeframes for the implementation of 14 critical measures to rebuild investor confidence, including steps to stabilize and reform a number of these SOEs. As has been reported before, Cabinet has considered guidelines for a whole range of matters, including the remuneration of executives and directors. These are intended to ensure consistency as well as transparency and probity in all matters relating to appointments and remuneration. And this, we believe, will strengthen governance of SOEs. Cabinet also considered a private sector participation framework which provides guidance on how the government can involve the private sector, particularly in infrastructure programs. The IMC is also coordinating work on the development of a new shareholder policy framework which will improve coordination, oversight, and effective allocation of resources. The first phase of the reform is focusing on the major commercial SOEs in our country that are the backbone of our infrastructure development process. The IMC has approved a structure that categorizes SOEs into 9 sectors, or if you like, 9 complexes, to allow for the optimization of state intervention in each sector. The prioritized sectors or complexes have been identified based on their potential to contribute to the reindustrialization of our economy, as well as how they can foster the job creation program. The work being done in the short to medium term is consolidation, realignment, and a possible merger of certain SOEs, concentrating particularly on the airlines, state mining assets, and telecommunications. The development of the optimal structure, for instance, for SAA, SA Express, and Mango has been discussed, and the Ministers of Finance, Public Enterprises will present the proposed recommendations to the Cabinet soon. There are also proposals for financial support to some of the SOEs we have in our country, and in light of what is envisaged in the draft shareholder policy, providing financial support to SOEs, this must be matched against the entity's potential to remain sustainable and wean itself off from support or guarantees from the government. The IMC is considering various alternative and innovative instruments on how we can continue to fund our SOEs, including leveraging on the private sector participation framework on which National Treasury is engaging with various departments and the SOEs themselves. Now, Madam Speaker, the criteria for support is currently being developed, and we will conclude that soon, and state-owned enterprises continue to have significant potential to drive higher levels of economic growth, as well as job creation and development. Now, through the work that is being done by the IMC on SOE reforms, we are confident that we will soon be able to effectively realize the potential of these key SOEs, and we've got a number of them that are big enough and are able to move the economic fortunes of our country forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Gwabaza.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Deputy President. Oh, could the Deputy President explain in detail the strategic role the proposed restructured and recapitalized SOEs will play in pursuit of achieving inclusive economic growth, including executing their broad developmental mandate? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, the first part clearly is to restructure and reposition a number of these state-owned enterprises and to make sure that they are able to be sustainable and that they are able to operate effectively and efficiently. And a number of the efforts and initiatives that are now underway, from remuneration policies as well as how they should manage their balance sheets, is aimed at repositioning quite a number of them and ensuring that when they do participate in economic activity, for instance, their procurement programs should be aimed at advancing economic growth on an inclusive basis, where they are able to advance the developmental goals of the Republic, where their inclusive programs are such that they empower the people of our country, the women, the young people, the disabled, and where they are able also to foster the development of small and medium enterprises. We are looking at set-asides that these state-owned enterprises will have when they procure goods and services, and that when they do so, they should do so in a way that will empower those who've always been excluded from economic activity in our country. They must focus on advancing the interests, the economic interests of black, small, medium enterprises. And they must also ensure that their procurement programs are so inclusive as to be able to bring into their fold of procurers black-owned businesses. And we are now involved, as you well know, Madam Speaker, in developing black industrialists, and we would like state-owned enterprises to get actively involved in advancing this type of programs, not only in helping to develop them, but also in helping to advance their own economic interests through the procurement of goods and services. And we believe that once these state-owned enterprises are properly streamlined and they play the role that they are destined to play in our economy, the benefits will be wholesome. They will be able to get the majority of our people, businesses, including communities, in economic activity that will advance all. And that is the type of SOE reform that we would like to see, which is all-encompassing, which involves the majority of our people, rather than just to favor a few individuals and few groups of people only. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Shibambu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You know, the common denominator in the instability of all state-owned companies is the interferences and the micromanagement by one family, which has got a close relationship with Duduzane's father, the president of the ANC. That is where the problem is in Dinel, in Transnet, in Eskom. Now recently, Eskom deposited 495 million to Trillion Capital. The interim board, or the board that is there now, confirmed that almost 500 million was deposited to Trillion Capital, which is a Gupta company, for absolutely nothing, for having done anything. In Transnet, the locomotives were overpriced by between 5 to 17 billion rands, and which ultimately benefited Trillion Capital, regiments, and all these companies that are linked to the Guptas. Every time we raise this issue, you did in the Eskom question, you raised the issue of the Commission of Inquiry and saying that a president who is implicated must appoint a Commission of Inquiry. Do you think that it is morally justifiable, is legally sound, and is rational for a president who is implicated in all these crises, in all this nonsense, to be the one that appoints a Commission of Inquiry to investigate amongst other things, his businesses, his family businesses that are intricately linked with the Gupta's interest.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Shibambu will be pleased to know that the President is in the process of applying his mind. He is applying his mind on all these matters that have been raised. Now clearly, the law is what it is. Commissions of inquiry are appointed by the President. That is what the Constitution of the Republic says. And there is just no two ways about it. But at the same time, Honorable Shibambu, we've got the criminal and justice investigation entities looking at all these matters that have arisen through the information, through the process that was...
No, Honorable Filtane, the Deputy President is in the middle of answering a question. Please take your seat.
And that's why I raised the point of order.
Deputy President, are you through?
No, I wasn't through.
Please, Honorable Filtane.
Well, I was saying that all these investigations having arisen from the Public Protector's report, as well as all the information that's been spreading around, are being investigated. And the Commission of Inquiry is being considered. And that is a process that must be allowed to unfold. Honorable Shibambu, it is when that has failed, it is when that has not yielded any results that the question, that is when even this moral question can then be asked. And I think we should allow time to unfold so that these matters can be investigated. And that is the best that we can do. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Shengwa.
Honorable Speaker, the Deputy President answering questions of Parliament.
No, Honorable.
Can you please help us? If he wants to be the President of South Africa, he has to speak more firmly
just
and
take
answer
your
questions.
Seat, please.
Or are you scared of Babaga Tutuzani, Chief?
Honorable Shengwa, please take your supplementary question.
No, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The 14-point plan, which has been referred to, is, a hollow vision devoid of any confidence-inducing content, primarily because of the conflicting statements from government where you speak from both sides of your mouth. On one hand, inclusive growth. On the other hand, you're speaking about radical social economic transformation. But Honorable Deputy President, the biggest problem with the SO is these bailouts, where you are throwing financial solutions to non-financial problems. The problem is the boards that you are appointing, people who are not fit for purpose and are not equal to the task at hand. Ben Gubane, dismal failure. Tutumieni, dismal failure. Prof. Makuve, dismal failure. Lucky Montana, dismal failure. All these boards are just a dismal failure. So hasn't the time come, Honorable Deputy President, whereby you really look at the manner in which these boards are constituted, and secondly, scrap the Department of Public Enterprises and relocate SOEs in line function departments so that you can better strengthen the capacity of those entities for them to work? Because currently, your plan is anchored in this 14-point plan or the 9-point plan, which we later learned was a 1-point plan. The GEA has collapsed, RDP collapsed, as GISA collapsed, the NDP is collapsing. So the inconsistency of policies and the incompetence of these boards is at the heart of the collapse of these state entities. So shouldn't we really reconfigure this whole thing and
Your time has expired, Honorable. Senate.
Wangiphuthuma kangaka simusazokuncoma nge-secret ballot.
Kahle. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Klangwa has raised quite a number of issues, particularly in relation to how these state-owned enterprises should be run and operated. And he's suggesting that you should get rid of the Department of Public Enterprises and then put all these state-owned enterprises into their own line departments. That is the one way of looking at it. What we've been seeking to do, Honorable Klangwa, is to see how best we can implement the recommendations of the Presidential Review Committee, which spoke to coordination, how best we can coordinate things such as the process and the system and the policy of appointing boards. That what you need to do is to have almost a uniform system of appointing boards so that Transnet does not have its own system, ESCOM does not have its own system. You should have a unified system or policy of appointing boards, of dealing with issues of remuneration, and also beginning to have an insight of how best you can coordinate some of their own activities so that you are able to utilize the scale that these state-owned enterprises have. Now, those are some of the thoughts that are emerging that we are looking at. You are looking at it in a different way. That has been the way in which some of these state-owned enterprises have operated almost separately and in silos. It has worked in part, but in other parts it has been also found to be a little bit weak. So we're seeking, therefore, to try and have a uniform policy, board appointments, remuneration, and many other things to see how best we can strengthen these state-owned enterprises. And you could also begin to have an insight of their balance sheet challenges. A number of them have huge balance sheets, and some have weak balance sheets. What do you do with all that? So those are some of the debates that I guess we will need to have here in this House as well to discuss more fully how the Republic moves ahead with these state-owned enterprises. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Lee.
Honorable Deputy President, I have in my possession a document which is marked secret. This was handed to the executive yesterday and indicates that the Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, is planning to give SAA a 10 billion rand bailout, primarily by selling government shares in Telkom. Honorable Deputy President, do you support the sale of a good asset to save a bad asset? And has Cabinet approved this move?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. If Honorable Mazamban, who is Zamban? No more, is Zamban Lord, no more Mabil Lord. If Honorable Zamban has, I don't even know what document he has, but if he has a document marked secret, if he has a document marked secret, and you're not a member of the executive, you could be charged and go to prison.
Point of order.
Order.
Point of order. Point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable Steenhuisen?
The point of order is that the Deputy President knows full well that we are protected by Section 55 of the Constitution, which means that we cannot be prosecuted or threatened for any document, including your own Cabinet memorandum under the Honourable Malusi Gigaba's signature.
Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, I was not even threatening. And the word threat comes from Honorable Member Steenhuisen's side. And I was saying, if indeed he has such a document, if it is marked secret, this is how I have been socialized into government, that any document that's marked secret, ufala ukuthi uyiyekele labo abafala ukuthi babe nama-document abhalwe secret. Yabona. Now, Madam Speaker, the issue that Honorable Member is talking about, clearly, it's a matter that we continue to discuss issues of state-owned enterprises, and we continue to discuss issues of assets that are owned by the government. We continue to discuss matters that have to do with assets that are strategic, assets that are not strategic. There may well be strategic assets from time to time, assets that are not strategic. And issues like that are always discussed by government, by cabinet, and indeed by various committees. And if that
Order, honorable members.
Now, the honorable member should wait. If that proposition comes, then Parliament will deal with it, and it is then that this matter will be addressed. It's a matter that may come and may not come, and so therefore you have to wait for something like that to happen. But we continue to discuss matters of assets that are owned by government. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 29, asked by the Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, unemployment, and particularly youth unemployment, is undoubtedly the greatest challenge facing our country today. If we are to effectively address this matter, but we need, however, to understand it. Since the adoption of the New Growth Path in October 2010, we have created 2.5 million jobs. That's about 420,000 jobs a year. Those are the jobs that this government has created on an annual basis. Our economy has been creating jobs, but not at the rate that is required by the much demand that is there by people who are seeking jobs. With a view to addressing this problem, government, business, and labor have been working on measures to promote investment, to stimulate growth, and to create jobs. The 9-point plan, which was announced by President Zuma in 2015 during his State of the Nation address, is being implemented, and it is yielding results. Yesterday, we heard an account that said that the 9-point plan is not yielding any results. But let me tell you how it is yielding results. In line with the plan, we've largely addressed the energy constraints the economy was facing 2 years ago. Around 11,000 megawatts have been added to the grid since 2013. Secondly, in addressing workplace conflict, we have reached groundbreaking agreements with our social partners on labor stability, and this has been broadly applauded by all and sundry as the implementation of that issue which was highlighted in the 9-point plan. The infrastructure program, thirdly, is gaining pace, providing essential economic and social infrastructure, as well as stimulating economic activity and creating jobs. Fourthly, the ease of doing business has improved and continues to improve with the establishment of Invest South Africa and the special economic zones that have been established and that are also in the process of being established throughout the country, thus attracting investment into the manufacturing sector. Fifthly, the oceans economy has been identified as a potentially huge job creator. We are working and focusing on the agro-processing sector of the economy as well. Now, in July, the Minister of Finance outlined a series of measures to unlock growth and provide investor confidence. Government departments are involved in a range of initiatives to scale up entrepreneurship, to increase the level of investment in the economy, to promote more beneficiation of raw materials into finished goods, strengthen economic links with the rest of the African continent, and promote higher levels of industrial innovation. These complement the employment effects of our infrastructure investment program. Funding for the industrial development through entities like the IDC are ongoing, and various measures to promote market competition are also underway. Now, Madam Speaker, through the CEO initiative, government is working with business and labor on practical measures to stimulate growth. These include promoting investment in key sectors and the establishment of a fund to finance small, medium enterprises with high growth potential. The private sector has committed and contributed 1.5 billion rand to this fund. A board is already in place, and the wheels are about to roll in regard to this one. Now, extensive work has also been done in relation to the Youth Employment Service, which will see 1 million young people being taken into internships in various companies. Now, we remain confident that this program will create all these jobs, and other measures being undertaken by government include the implementation of the preferential procurement regulations that introduce the 30% set aside I spoke about for small enterprises and accelerating the Agri-Pax program. Now, we are making progress as well on rolling out the Black Industrialist program. To date, we have supported over 50 black industrialists, attracting over 50 billion rand in investment and creating around 20,000 jobs. Now, Madam Speaker, these programs are expanding the potential of our economy and creating opportunities for a number of people to find jobs. If we are to be a successful country, the creation of jobs clearly must be at the center of all that we do. We are making progress, but we all agree in government that we need to do much more. And it is this much more that we are focusing our attention on, particularly in this trying economic phase that our country is going through. And it is a phase, and this phase shall come to pass as well. And our country will be on a much higher growth trajectory where we will be increasing the people who are in employment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much. Deputy President, whilst I hear many of the plans, 9-point plan, NDP, all of these plans, what certainly doesn't change is the fact that 9 million of our people are unemployed. What has also become very clear is that more than half our citizens are living in poverty. These have been ANC policies that have brought us to this point. And one key policy that your cabinet has adopted is the mining policy and the mining charter that was launched recently, which the president confirmed that you were part of the cabinet that agreed to it. Now, I want to know whether, Deputy President, in a time such as this one, where policy indecision is delivering us to a point where companies are in fact retrenching people. Sibanye has already said they are going to lose 7,000 jobs. Anglo Gold have already said they'll cut up to 8,500 jobs. and Bukoni Platinum have already said they are going to cut 3,000 jobs, primarily because of the indecision in this mining charter that you've launched. My question to you, Deputy President, is do you publicly support this mining charter? Would you join a call, along with many others in the industry, for this mining charter to be scrapped so that we can focus, all of us as a country, in creating and preserving the current jobs that we've got? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Now, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Let me say that there are quite a number of retrenchments that are taking place in the mining industry, and indeed in other sectors of our economy as well. Now, that is a matter that we need to be very concerned about, and we should not even adopt a posture where we pontificate, where we point fingers. This is a collective problem, and this is where all South Africans need to be saying, we want to save as many jobs as possible, and we want to create many jobs so that our people can be in employment. Now, when it comes to the mining charter issue, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition will know that the governing party at its policy conference did say that this matter needs to be addressed through a consensus process with the private sector, with the mining industry, and that process is now underway. Now, this requires that both government, both labor, as well as the mining industry should sit around a table and discuss and debate the mining charter that was released by the Minister of Mineral Resources. And this is a process that is now underway. Now, rather than to stand here and pontificate, we say we want everyone who has a wise suggestion to make to come forward and put that proposal forward on how we deal with this problem that we're facing. Our economy now is in a technical recession. Now, rather than be screaming and shouting and pontificating, we need to say this is where we are. And where we are, we have been before. Our country has been through a number of recessions, and what stood us in good stead, which the private sector has recognized, is that we need to get together rather than point fingers. Rather than point fingers, the captains of industry have said, this is when our government, ourselves as captains of industry and labor, need to sit around a table and see how we get out of this. Now, I want to invite Honorable Maimane to join those who love their country so much that they are willing to contribute time, effort, and wisdom to the growth of our economy, rather than to point fingers as he's doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Shibambu.
No, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Do you know, Deputy President, from around 1996, the philosophical underpinning of ANC's jobless economic growth strategy has been that we must create an environment for the private sector, for the owners of money, to come and invest, to create jobs here in South Africa. Now, it looks like all the owners of money, the capitalists, are unanimous in the observation that they do not trust you as a collective. And part of that distrust is because of the ANC's relationship with the Guptas. The TG of the ANC came here to say that the ANC is funded by the Guptas. He confirmed in the ad hoc committee on political party funding. Now, you said earlier that you don't want to be associated with the moral questions and everything else. Now, on a legal principle, you are a lawyer. The last time I checked, they say you are a lawyer. As a legal principle, do you think it is rational for a person who is conflicted to appoint a judicial commission of inquiry to investigate an issue that is going to involve him, inevitably will have to testify on a legal principle? on a legal principle, leave the morals. If the moral issue do not play there, on a legal principle, do you think that it is justifiable for such a person to appoint a commission of inquiry? And lastly, let's leave the secret document of cabinet about the sale of Telkom. Do you think that it's wise to dispose of Telkom in order to bail out, to throw money at a failing SAA? Can you please answer those questions?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Now,
Order, Speaker. Order, Speaker.
What is the point of order?
Honorable Shivambu has asked 2 additional questions, so we think that is unfair.
Speaker, we are always attacked by people that side. I've never seen them debate. I've never seen them ask questions. All they do is raise points of order.
Honorable Ndozi.
I've never seen them do anything.
I haven't given you the floor, Honorable Ndozi. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, I'd like to take my cue from Honorable Dr. Ndlozi's final words to debate and discuss these matters. Because the point that Honorable Shibambu is raising, for instance, hypothetically, talking about the sale of certain state-owned assets to finance others, is it the wise thing to do? I would like to debate that. I would like us to engage in the debate because it could well be, how do you balance certain things? You hold an asset in one hand, and you've got to meet a particular obligation on another hand, and you have to weigh up which is the better option for you and which gives you a better return, but not only a better return, but does it help you to meet and address your developmental mandate or objectives? Now that, for me, is a matter that we need to debate. It's not as easy, Honorable Shibambu, as saying, do you sell Telkom shares to fund this and this and that? It is actually looking at everything in the totality of its balance and then arrive at a conclusion and then say, which serves you the best in terms of how you juggle up your assets. And the other one, of course, could well be, what do you do? Do you actually sell or do you do a share swap? And if you do a share swap, who do you do the share swap with? Because as the state, you own a number of assets, and you could actually do a share swap where everything comes back being neutral. So I leave that for a further debate with Honorable Shibambu and Dr. Ndlozi as well. In relation to the first question that Honorable Shibambu raised, where he asked me the legal question, it's not only a legal question, it's a constitutional challenge and problem. It is a constitutional one because, yes, you could argue that the president has a conflict because the public protector's report involves him as a person. Now, what do you do? The Constitution says he has to appoint any commission of inquiry. And at the same time, there was a court challenge which said that he should not do so. And in the end, the court said the constitutional provision stands. So what do we do? And these are matters that we need to discuss and to debate. And in the end, I take comfort from the fact that the president has said he's going to appoint a commission. Now, once a commission is appointed, Honorable Shibambu, it really is going, we all have to rely on the person who is appointed who will be a judge. That person who is a judge is going to, in the end, be guided by their own independence, their own legal ability to maneuver their way around the various matters that will arise. So we should have confidence in the efficacy of that whole process of the appointment of the Commission of Inquiry. So rather than being a legal question, it is a constitutional problem and challenge that we have to address. And I think we should wait until that moment when that commission is finally appointed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Filtane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Mr. Deputy President, let me remind you about this grim picture in which South Africa finds itself under the rule of the ANC government. Currently, you are on 36% towards achieving your 6 million jobs by 2019. And the economy is performing very badly, no growth. Public Works holds a portfolio of properties worth 150 billion. And according to a report they presented to us yesterday, there's no specific number of jobs that will come from that, be it maintenance or whatever. The EPWP offers temporary jobs. So serious-minded people are not impressed by that 2.6 million jobs that you told us about, because so many of those people could be out of employment as we speak. Mines are shedding jobs. The education that is offered by your government does not help people to get employment. Now, how many jobs, because the question was from 1st of January this year, how many jobs has your government planned to create this current financial year? That's a specific question. And from which sectors? Please tell me, and tell me now.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Filtani touched on a number of areas where we have planned to create jobs, and he touched on the Public Works Ministry, where we get involved in creating job opportunities. Now, the governing party's manifesto declared that by the end of this term, we want to have created 6 million job opportunities. Now, where we stand now, we are going to be a tad lower than that 6 million job opportunities. Now, that is not a massive decline, it's a tad lower than those 6, and we are being as honest as we possibly can be. Now, what do those 6 million job opportunities, and probably we will come out at maybe 5 million or 5.2 million, having targeted 6 million. Now, if we come out at, say, even if it's 5 million, in the 5-year cycle, what we will have done is to give 5 million South Africans an opportunity to be gainfully employed and to be exposed to an economic activity that can offer them either training, that can offer them experience. And past experience has told us that a number of those people in the end do end up in finding jobs of a more permanent nature. Now, that gives us confidence that we will be able to move in that direction. Granted, at the moment, our economy is not firing on all cylinders for a variety of reasons, and there is no single reason that says that the economy is failing for that and that reason. It's a plethora of reasons. Some of them have to do with, yes, investment. Some of them have to do with, yes, the issue of uncertainty, which we must admit. Many corporate leaders are saying that they are a bit uncertain about what the future portends. And some of them are obviously arguing about the issue of where the economy is, and personal consumption expenditure has come down in a number of ways, and it's not only in this country. And young people are out of work. Now, what is the government doing? The government is working with a number of role players. As it is now, we're hoping to create 330,000 jobs between now from October up till October of next year for young people. Now, that is a big number of jobs that will be created. Yes, opportunities for training and learnerships. So they are going to be absorbed into that. The oceans economy that we have been working on is going to be creating quite a number of jobs. We've got a lot of investments lined up, and we're hoping that that in itself will yield up to 70,000 jobs. Agro-processing with the agri-parks that we are working on are also going to create a number of jobs. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that you have a government, yes, that is facing a number of challenges economically, but it is a government that is not sleeping on the job. It is a government that is busy looking at ways and means of how we can address the job losses as well as the job creation aspirations that we have. So are we bent and intending to create jobs? The answer is yes. Are we concerned about the job losses? The answer is yes. Are we doing something about creating jobs? The answer is overwhelmingly yes. And day and night we're working at how we should create jobs. My colleagues on the other side, they wake up every morning and they just criticize. We wake up every morning and worry and seek to create jobs. And you look at the two, who is doing something about job creation? This side is doing something about job creation. That side is talking and complaining about job losses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Honorable Shelembe.
Honorable Deputy President, given the current unemployment rate of 27.7%, wouldn't this be the perfect moment to introduce the basic income grant for the unemployed? If it is a perfect moment, how soon is such likely to be implemented? I thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
The issue of a basic income grant clearly has to be seen as being part of the comprehensive social security proposal that is being looked at. The number of role players, unions, and community leaders and organizations, and indeed members of the governing party have raised and have been raising the issue of a comprehensive security dispensation. And as we look at it, the government has gone a long way in providing a measure of social security for those who have just been born up to the age of 18 and those who are above 60. There is a gap in between 19 and 59 years old of South Africans, and many of them who are able-bodied, who are not benefiting if they are unemployed. Now, those are the people we have sought to absorb through the public employment programs that we have launched. Those are the people who we are trying to create jobs for. Now, the question that the honorable member raises is a moot point. It's a matter that needs to be looked at. And may I say that South Africa is not the only country that is looking at this. A number of countries in the northern hemispheres, in developed economies, are looking at matters of a basic income grant. In our case, we are looking at a comprehensive social security type of dispensation, which is currently under discussion. And it's not going to be a silver bullet that addresses the problems of the many of our people right now, but it is a matter that is being looked at. And I'm hoping that when we have looked at it, our economic fortunes will have changed to a point where the tasks that we then have to undertake will be a lot easier for our country to bear. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We now come to the last question, question number 30, asked by the Honorable Killian to the Deputy President. The Honorable DP.
Madam Speaker, the Department of Higher Education and Training steers the development of higher education programs through enrollment planning and funding. The department interacts with institutions on key priority areas emanating from, amongst others, the Human Resource Development Strategy, as well as the National Development Plan. Through these engagements, universities are required to plan their enrollments, to be responsive to the developmental needs of the country. Universities are funded in relation to agreements on enrollment, graduation targets, and research publication output. This process assists government in ensuring alignment between high-level human resource needs of the country, as well as our human resource development strategy and the outputs of institutions. While it is necessary, Madam Speaker, to address the challenge of unemployed university and college graduates, it is important not to overstate this problem. According to the quarterly labor force survey, the QLFS, for the last quarter, unemployment amongst individuals holding universities degrees is just over 7%, while unemployment among individuals holding other post-secondary qualifications, such as diplomas and certificates, is 17%. On the other hand, unemployment amongst matriculants runs as high as 28%, while 33% of those with less than matric are unemployed. Lack of education is therefore the first hurdle that many people have towards finding a job. We are therefore working not only to increase the number of young people who access training opportunities, but also to improve the quality and outcomes of such opportunities. Government recognizes that work experience is another critical ingredient for reducing youth unemployment. Government is actively engaging with the private sector to create pathways to the world of work through the SETAs, particularly also through the TVET colleges. And we have found that a number of TVET colleges, as young people graduate, are able to work with SETAs, to work with the private sector, to get them employed in various firms. Through the envisaged youth employment scheme that I was talking about earlier, government and business are collaborating to give 1 million young people quality work experience and internship. It is our hope that this initiative will be finalized in the next few months, and we are banking all hope on ensuring that this does happen, as it will absorb quite a number of young people in gainful activity. Government has also introduced the Entrepreneurship in Higher Education project to enhance the position entrepreneurship and innovation in university curricula can play. This coming Saturday, I will be visiting Falls Bay, TVET College here in Cape Town, accompanied by a number of cabinet colleagues and private sector partners to address the issue of youth employability. We will be hosting a youth career expo involving learners from Cape Town, townships, and beyond. We will expose them to various post-school education opportunities and help them make informed career choices, to apply for study in colleges and universities, as well as to access NSFAS support. Our youth are willing, Madam Speaker, and they are also ready to work. Ours is to make opportunities available to them. Ours is to make pathways open to them so that the young people of our country can grasp these opportunities and be able to get ahead with their lives. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Killian.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to Honourable Deputy President for his reply. It is good to know that it confirms that graduate unemployment is actually low in comparison to unemployment rate of grade 12 matriculants, which should in fact encourage learners in secondary schools to go beyond that. But that in itself also poses a serious challenge to government to provide education opportunities in the post-school sector. The question is, to the Deputy President, will government also adjust its human resource development strategy in line with the skills requirements for this fourth industrial revolution? It is estimated that the revolution is going to change the profiles of jobs throughout. It's also going to affect the TVET industry. And will government also consider additional measures to make sure that young people are afforded an opportunity to enter the workplace through possibly tax incentives? Lastly, Chairperson, Speaker, TVET college students often find it very difficult to stay in education and training, and some of them also make the wrong choices. How will they be assisted to make sure that they go into critical skills fields to have jobs at the end of their studies? Thank you.
Speaker.
She still has 15 seconds.
Speaker.
Honorable Deputy President.
Of the UDM, yes.
No.
May I address you, ma'am?
No, what are you addressing me on? I want the Deputy President to answer
I didn't want
question.
to interrupt him. That's why I'm on my feet before he's actually on his feet. Speaker, I think we need to build transparency into this follow-up question system. Because the problem is that we press, and sometimes the person who pressed after you would actually get to ask a question.
No.
No, it is true.
No.
It is true.
No, we'll deal with it with the table staff if there's a problem. But what I see here is
Speaker,
what you see,
my
and
point,
that's
I
the
don't
truth.
see it on my screen, but maybe what should happen is that the queuing system should be on our screens as well so that we can see what's happening. It will build credibility into the system.
It's fine, we'll deal with it. The Honorable Deputy President.
Point of order, Speaker.
Where's the point of order?
Honorable Speaker, I have the same concern because I have been pressing that button again and again and again, and it's not the first day. This has happened on numerous occasions and just no acknowledgement. So maybe we need to have a look and see if there is a problem, or maybe it is sabotaged by somebody.
No, we'll look at it. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. Clearly the strategy of ensuring that young people do acquire the necessary skills to be employable needs to continue being sharpened. The Human Resource Development Council has been at work in relation to this matter, and we're looking at ways in which we can sharpen the skills of young people through various programs and initiatives that we are embarking on. And clearly one of those is to see how best our young people can be prepared for the fourth revolution, where robots are going to be the order of the day, where they will be doing things that humans used to do, and they will have taken the positions that ordinary workers are performing at the moment. And indeed, that moment has arrived upon us, and we therefore need to find ways, and we are seeking to find ways through innovation, through a number of technological means to prepare our young people in that regard. And clearly, our education system also needs to be well geared for this type of eventuality. And the other important issue is to get people to get into, be trained for critical skills that they will need to participate more actively in the economy. What I can say is that from the government point of view and through the Human Resource Development Council, we are looking at a variety of ways of doing this. And the good thing is that we are working with a number of universities and academics at professorial level who are part of the efforts that we are making in looking very closely at these challenges that face the skill acquisition process that many of our young people are having to deal with. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Msimang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, the key word in this question is alignment. Unfortunately, in many of our institutions, there is no alignment between the programs that are offered and the demands of the industry. There are many reasons for this, but I'm focusing on the qualifications of our lecturers. In many instances, the lecturers are not qualified for what they are teaching, or the institutions are not offering what is required by industry because of the lack of sufficiently qualified lecturers. I would like to know what the government is doing about this lack. Honorable Speaker, this does not start at TVET colleges or university level. It starts right at school level, where many of the programs that are required by industry require the knowledge of mathematics and science.
Please ask the question.
This country is lacking these as well. And what is the government doing about it? We are aware that the
Honorable Member, you are almost at 2 minutes. Please ask the question.
I've asked 2 questions. What is the
Actually, you are allowed 1. But that's fine, but please.
It's the lack of qualified lecturers and qualified teachers for mathematics and science.
Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, the key question and issue that Honorable Msimang raises is the question of alignment. And where he says that we need to align the demands of industry with what is taught at our various institutions. And I can say that through the human resource development strategy, that's precisely what we are seeking to do through our TVET colleges, through community colleges as well, and indeed also looking at what is taught at a much higher tertiary level. We are encouraging, and we're working on this fervently, encouraging the private sector to partner our TVET colleges, and in a number of ways to also adopt those TVET colleges, and doing so will enable our lecturers to sharpen their wits and their knowledge against what the private sector participants who will come to their colleges to assist in spreading knowledge and experience will be able to offer. And we have found that where this is happening, we are able to get our lecturers to be exposed themselves to the world of work, themselves to be exposed to modern methods of teaching certain disciplines or subjects that are relevant to, say, industry. And this is where the interface between industry and the teaching staff is able to be so well synchronized, where the teaching staff in these institutions know what the industry requires on an ongoing basis. Now, this is taking place as we encourage the relationship to deepen and to spread between colleges or TVET colleges as well as industry. Now, at the school level, Honorable Msimang will know that our Department of Basic Education is involved in a huge process of helping to improve the knowledge base of our teachers, and many of our teachers are taking this up enthusiastically, supported by various other formations like their unions. Our teachers are continuously improving their skills. You'll be pleased to know that many of our teachers, or educators as we call them, are actually actively improving their own qualifications and getting degrees and getting master's degrees and honors degrees with a view of improving their knowledge base, and in a number of cases in maths and science as well. This is a development that we should be pleased about, because the legacy that we have had has been so bad that we've had to embark on remedial actions in getting many of our educators to improve their own knowledge and capability in these very critical subjects. So is work being done in this area? The answer is yes. We are moving along. We are not standing in one place. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Sope.
Thank you, Speaker. It's me. Deputy President, there is a misdiagnosis rooted in this question as well as in your policy that we do not have jobs or labor absorptive industries because of skills. The people who build majority of the things that we consume don't even have matric. The VASLabs, the teaspoons, the VASCOMs, these mics, televisions, and cell phones. So the true reason why we are not able to give jobs is because the people who carry the money to come and create those factories don't have confidence in your government, because your government is corrupt. Perfect example, how do you explain selling your stake in Telkom to go and reward Dudu Mieni in SAA? Now, the problem with that is Telkom controls the DTT infrastructure. They control our cell phone and telecommunications infrastructure. The military intelligence equipments that they use rely on Telkom. You go sell that to the majority of which are Americans. How is that a rational decision for any country that cares for its sovereignty? Selling it, why? To go and save an incompetent, corrupt board in SAA. So the real reason why we are not being able to create jobs is because the people who've got the money for the labor absorptive industries don't have confidence in your government. Is it rational, please, to sell the stake in Telkom in order to save SAA? Answer it directly. SAA is less meaningful in relation to Telkom. It's embarrassing actually to even hear that proposition.
Honorable the Deputy President.
On a point of order, Chair.
I probably missed the question. Honorable Khadebe, point of order.
Yes, this is a different question from what is there on the table, Chair.
Indeed.
Please.
Speaker, I told you that this guy's job is not even to read. It's just orders, irrelevant orders.
Honorable Lozi, please take your seat. Honorable DP, do you have any appetite to engage with what Honorable Lozi was saying?
I have an appetite to engage with him when it comes to the diagnosis that he was outlining. In relation to the rest of the point that he was making, I think his thinking may be a bit misaligned. But it is on the diagnosis that I would like to engage him, because his argument is the people with the capital don't want to come and invest in labor absorptive industries that will make teaspoons, VASLabs, and VASCOMs. What I find pleasing with that is that he recognizes that many of these things ordinarily are made by our people. our people have a skill base to be able to make, yes, teaspoons, vaslaps, and all that. And the reality of the matter is that our country's economy has been built by those very people that we are talking about. And the issue of those with capital not wanting to come is a debatable matter. There is money in this country. Yes, companies are sitting back and not investing for a number of reasons. And one of those touches on the point that you are making. There's a political uncertainty that they have raised. They've also raised regulatory uncertainty. And these are matters that, Honorable Dr. Ndlozi, we are addressing and have to address so that those with capital and the capital that we also can mobilize and leverage can be brought to bear to create those industries. Because I listened to you very, very carefully with your insightful contribution yesterday when you were making precisely the point you are making, which in my view was very progressive in saying these are the industries that we need to be creating and absorb the majority of our people. I couldn't agree more with you on that. And as regards that level of diagnosis, in part I agree, but I also say that we need to look at the matter more broadly as we absorb the majority of our people and mobilize local resources. And money is available here. And of course, yesterday you were saying there's no foreign direct investment. There has been foreign direct investment in a much bigger way for South Africa than it has been for the rest of the continent. So we've been absorbing and attracting quite a lot of FDI in this country, and we continue to do so. So we are able to mobilize resources, and all we need to do is to focus on those types of industries that you're talking about, which speaks to the reindustrialization of our economy. This is precisely what this side of the House has been talking about, that we need to industrialize the economy of our country, create labor absorptive sectors. On that, I'm with you completely. The other matter which has to do with, say, for instance, a telecom. This is a matter that I would like us to debate here in this House. And I would like you to get ready to discuss this matter if and when it does happen. You say it's a secret. If and when it does happen to arrive here in this House, we should debate it. And it is in that regard that we should be able to discuss this matter. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Bukwa.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Deputy President, it is common cause that SETA training is unlikely to generate jobs for graduates at the rate that universities and TVET colleges would. Do you, Deputy President, simply put, support the shutting down of these corrupt SETAs and taking those billions and generating them to better education institutions to ensure that graduates have employment and the majority of unemployed youth in South Africa can have an opportunity to better the circumstances of their lives?
The Honorable Deputy President.
We will admit that some of our SETAs have been facing challenges. And some of the challenges have had to deal with precisely the point that you are raising. But it does not finally mean that you need to shut down a system that was set up to advantage young people. This is a system that can work, and in a number of cases, a number of SETAs are working. And the good news for you, Honorable Member, is that the private sector, in the form of business organizations, are now working with us to try and see how we can, if you like, repair some of those SETAs, to reposition some of those SETAs, because the conceptualization of SETAs was really an inspired effort and a very inspired initiative. Those SETAs that have focused on training and providing opportunities for young people are doing extremely well. There have just been a few that have not hit the mark that we had wanted them to hit, and we are saying we need to repair them, we need to reposition them, so that they can achieve the objectives for which they were set out for. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President. That brings us to the end of the question session. I thank the Honorable Deputy President. The Secretary will read the first to fourth orders together.
Thanks, ma'am. I said close.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on oversight visit to Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on oversight visits to Ilembe and Kings Etswayo education districts. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on oversight visits to Port Elizabeth education district, northern areas. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on oversight visits to Ekurhuleni North, Ekurhuleni South, and Tshwane North education districts. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on third quarterly report on performance of Department of Basic Education in meeting its strategic objectives for 2016-17.
I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Singh.
I think number 5 was incorrectly read as a matter we are discussing now.
Sorry? Okay. What should have been how? Number 5, okay. Yeah. Okay. That's correct. We'll ignore it.
It's 124, Honorable Speaker, the
Yes.
oversight report.
Yes, that's correct.
I move that the report be adopted.
Okay. Any declarations? Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, sorry. I wanted to check if Minister Mahlobo is explaining why the document was leaked in cabinet meeting to the Deputy President. Can we be taken to confidence if that's the conversation?
Honorable Ndlozi.
Because the intelligence services are a bit incompetent in this country.
Cross the line over there and ask them. That's not for the House. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson. As a Democratic Alliance, we would like to express our condolences to the Khoza family and the ANC for the loss of their colleague, a father and a husband, Mr. TZM Khoza. Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance accepts the report as a true reflection of the oversight visits. We sincerely hope that our recommendations will help to force the department's mandate in offering equal quality education for our learners. Chairperson, let me start by saying that the majority of the challenges faced by various schools in the township and the rural areas have commonalities. But despite this overwhelming evidence, the department claims plausible deniability. One case in point of great concern is for Isifose Secondary School in KZN, which obtained 0% in maths and science in 2016 because of a lack of a qualified maths teacher, coupled with lack of leadership and low morale of educators. Despite this, the KZN department did not deem necessary to provide a qualified teacher to improve the results for 2017. Even the Funza Lushaka bursary program devised by the Department of Basic Education, which should ensure that more maths and science teachers become available, failed to produce the numbers required. In the same province, KZN, 10 schools achieved a 0% pass rate in the last matric examination. As a DA, we cannot emphasize enough that teachers and principals are to be supported, but also held accountable for the performance of their learners. Our committee also observed that at various schools, there's been a lack of services: water, sanitation, electricity, math schools. They still exist in the Eastern Cape, which means that we are far from achieving the prescribed norms and standards. Delivering textbooks in time for the start of the school year is still a concern, and school infrastructure maintenance remains neglected because there's no culture of ownership and pride, and even enough allocation to fund the infrastructure maintenance. In KZN, we also found prevalence of certain teachers who are protected by SATU. It was found to be undermining the education of our children in that province. Honorable Chair, learners are also flocking to Gauteng and Western Cape, seeking a decent and a stable education. These provinces are struggling with the increased enrollment, which pushes up learner to educator ratio. But the ANC government is doing little to ensure that MECs in other provinces step up to the plate and address challenges there. In the interim, we advise the department to deploy mobile classrooms and to reconsider a budget increase for these provinces by engaging with Treasury for a permanent solution. Chairperson, the hardships and setbacks that learners continue to face in the pursuit of quality education are insurmountable. To this day, the learners from Chief Ngonyama Technical School in the Ilembe district in KZN continue to wake up at 3:30 a.m. each morning to prepare to go to school. If that was not enough, Chairperson, the majority of these learners are orphans who are not only responsible for their education, but bear on their shoulders the responsibilities of looking after their siblings and their elders. They start to walk to school at 4:30 a.m. Without doubt, when they arrive at school, they are tired and hungry. And that is how they start their day of school. We can all imagine how low their eagerness to learn will be in that state. Their struggles continue as they will have to embark on the same journey back in the afternoon, arriving home tired but still expected to do their chores and homework. And yet, Honorable Chair, their performance has to be on par with any other learner in the urban areas. Surely this cannot be a level playing field. It is unacceptable. The Department of Basic Education cannot continue to exonerate itself from its constitutional obligations. The implementation of a dedicated budget for school transport is the only way to resolve this matter. Thank you, Chair.
EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The economic freedom fighters would like to send its heartfelt condolences to the family of Koza, one of the humble souls who served with us in this house, who lost his life in a car accident. And we would also like to say, those who were injured in that accident, we would like to wish them a speedy recovery. The EFF, as a government in waiting, and as a caring government in waiting, will never align itself with the state of basic education seen today in South Africa. It is quite abusive and it's quite inhumane. The state of basic education in South Africa is the biggest indictment on the ANC government and should be declared a crime against humanity. During this visit to various schools across the country and following our engagements with various stakeholders in the basic education system, the legacy of basic education is ever present, with the quality of education offered to poor black students being one of the worst in the world. These are just some of the conditions observed during oversight, some of which are unique and some of which can be applied to most provinces and districts across the country. A lack of learner-teacher support material like textbook, a serious lack of learner transport, teachers without necessary qualification still being allowed in our schools, shortage of maths and science teachers, a primary school consisting of 4 old mobile classrooms. Yet we get the ANC coming here and claiming that all is well. Countless schools with spit toilets, schools with no access to water, with delivery of water often being late. Children cannot learn while they are dehydrated. Schools with 1 teacher to 50 students, a school with a principal teaching 4 grades whilst also performing office work, which is unacceptable. High level of absenteeism in winter during lack of infrastructure. Schools without any sport facility, while you have school in this country with 10 rugby fields, and all is well in the eyes of the ANC. Factions and power struggle within the certain basic education departments. Schools building with asbestosis roofing. This government continues to allow our children to be poisoned. An agricultural school with no operational farms. Learners not being given results because they owe the school. This is the state of basic education in South Africa. Yet the ANC claims that they are delivering. Until such time that the EFF takes over government, we expect no change. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the IFP, we wish to send our heartfelt condolences to the family of Khoza, to the friends and to the African National Congress and the entire members of Parliament who worked with the Honorable late Khoza. And to those who were injured during the tragic accident, we wish them a speedy recovery. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the IFP found it remarkable that the MEC for Education, Mr. Panyazar Sufi, leads the government of Gauteng in the Department of Education from the front. He has managed to inculcate social cohesion, mutual participation by all stakeholders, including the department officials, SGBs, the SAPA, the organized labor, learners and their parents and educators. He has succeeded in obtaining a buy-in from school communities of the ownership, the caring and the total welfare of the schools. To illustrate this point, when he welcomed the portfolio committee, he reported that earlier that week, a community in Bronkhorstspruit had torched a school. He expressed his zero tolerance for communities who view the school as a soft target for political protest actions. He boldly informed the committee that he would not take the taxpayers' money from those needing a school and give it to those that did not want a school. The community should take ownership of and responsibility of the school. The portfolio committee was also impressed by Lesotho's pro-poor policy, which ensured that a learner population over 1.2 million learners receive a hot meal every day. Almost 130,000 learners are transported to school daily. At least 83% of the schools are no-fee schools, and all girl learners receive dignity packs on a monthly basis. However, what the IFP feels must be emulated by other provinces from Gauteng is in the introduction of digital learning, because this is the trajectory which has been adopted by the modern world. In Gauteng, every learner is registered online, every learner is provided with a tablet, and every educator is provided with a laptop. Parents who are ICT illiterate are given an assistance on how to register their children online. The government Department of Education has so transformed and modernized education as to raise it to the world standards. The IFP supports the reports. Thank you.
NFP.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party welcomes the reports of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education tabled here today. The reports of various oversight visits paint a bleak picture of the state of basic education in our country. The glaring lack of basic infrastructure and service such as electricity, running water, adequate sanitation, 22 years after we have gained our freedom is unacceptable and is a painful reminder of how government is failing our children and our people. The National Freedom Party understands that we have inherited an education system which was designed to serve the needs of a minority. But we believe that it is time for government to start taking responsibility for its lack of providing our schools with barest necessities. In particular, we are appalled at the lack of resourcing of our rural schools, where community property is prevalent and social service development often non-existent. Such deficiencies are beyond the mandate of the Department of Basic Education and will require a coordinated interdepartmental efforts to come up with a solution. There are, however, many aspects of and issues surrounding our basic education, which the department is mandated to deal with but is failing to do so. Many schools in KwaZulu-Natal, for example, have not received their allocated operational funds as we speak as no-fee schools. And those that are lucky to get it, it is far less than expected. The nutrition and feeding programs are still encountering tender-related disputes. These and many other similar issues could be and should be addressed by the department, but it is just not happening. The NFP believes that a full functional basic education system is vital for the progress of our people and economic growth of our country. A full functional education system is the gateway through which future generations will be empowered to cast off the shackles of poverty and prosper, the rock upon which society will build and grow. Right now, however, we do not have a full functional basic education system, and we are robbing our children of a chance to realize their dreams and maximize their aspirations. To conclude, the NFP welcomes the reports of the oversight visit table here today, and we are in full agreement with the recommendations contained in them. However, we have reservations whether any action will follow on these recommendations.
Your
Thank
time
you.
has unfortunately expired. UDM?
I find it rather interesting that when we're dealing with such an important matter in our lives, in the history of South Africa, so many members of the ruling party have decided to leave the room. And yet education is collapsing in this country. In particular, both ministers settled with the responsibility of making sure that our children get education, proper education, and not with us. They have decided to leave. Who can still take the ANC government seriously? We in the opposition benches had better get ready to make sure that come 2019, we rule this country. They have abandoned their responsibility. They're gone. All of them. It's all empty. Gone. Once the deputy president was out, they're gone. So many ministers, education in particular, they are not interested to know what is happening at education because they know they are symbols of failure. There's no point in me sticking to this script because the party that is supposed to do something about this report has decided to abandon the nation. They've abandoned the nation. So what is the point of going into the technicalities of what was seen, what is supposed to be? We had better shape up because they've shipped out already. They're out, physically out, not interested in the education. We will rule as the opposition parties come 2019, I promise you, because the ANC has given up. So busy with their factional battles, they are now a bunch of fractions. That's why one fraction is gone, and another fraction is gone, and a smaller fraction is still in the room. That's your ANC. We had better shape up and get ready to rule this country. They've abandoned the nation.
Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Simple as all that.
Honorable Filtani, please take your seat. Yes, Honourable Member, what rule, what are you rising on?
Is the honourable member prepared to take a question?
Honourable Filtani, are you prepared to take a question?
Not from the ANC, which is
Honourable
crumbling.
Fultani
Not
knows
from
they
the
can't
ANC.
even rule Nelson Mandela
Honourable
Bay
Member,
without a
please
fight.
take your seat. Go ahead, Honourable Filtani.
Just to give you a sample of what is happening. No appropriate teachers are in schools. Insufficient and inappropriate teachers continue to look, to pose in front of students. Inappropriate school buildings are the order of the day, countrywide. There's no point of even referring to KZN or any particular one. That's why the minister has run away. She can't face the reality. There is just nothing. All that needs to be done is to look at some 6 points which will improve the education. This side will be interested. This one is given up. Professionalization of the teaching service, courageous and effective leadership, which will come from this side, improving government capacity to deliver. This side has failed. Improving resources to create conducive and safe learning environment, not money going to the Guptas, community and parent involvement, learner support and well-being. That's what will change this country. These have failed. They have run away now.
ANC. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I feel pity for the people who took I feel pity for you who took a stand for things that you don't know. You know, Tina sitete sikwaziyo, sitete sikbonileyo, asithethe story. We are not here for stories. We are here for reality. Mr. Filtani, ufuna sikuboleke izpecs unxibe double ukwenzela bubone i-ministers zethu ezilapha. I-deputy minister. Nanku deputy minister wami ningamboniyo. We are here to discuss 5 provinces reports, not one province, Honorable Mashezi. We are not concentrating on one province. These reports are on 5 provinces. That is KZN, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Ilembe, and Gauteng. As ANC, we know and understand the importance of oversight, and that it plays a vital role in ensuring accountability, and that the citizens of South Africa receive the services delivery which they deserve. The purpose of these oversights were in those 5 provinces were to see the state of schooling in the provinces, of which this report contains the achievements and challenges, as well as areas of best practices that the provinces shown. We put an emphasis on Gauteng province, as Honorable from IFP has just mentioned. That province, it is worth mentioning that Gauteng province excels in ICT in schools. Thus, you may go and see yourselves. Don't run away from the oversights. Attend oversights so that you can see the progress in provinces. The smart boards in classrooms.
Honourable Member, please take your seat. Yes. Take your seat, Honourable Member. Yes, what are you rising on?
I'm just noticing something, Deputy Speaker, that the Honourable Member is getting very much comfortable.
No, Honourable Member, you are not saying
so
anything.
Don't get comfortable in the
Take your seat, Honourable Member. Go ahead, Honourable Member.
It is pleased to hear that comment, that you think about the chairperson of this portfolio, of which we are also mourning the death of our comrades. So it was pleased to see that to see the ICT in Gauteng, the advanced ICT that is used in schools, the smart boards that are used in classes, the tablets that are used by learners, laptops for educators. Although there are challenges, the province has policies for these challenges. In KZN, that have been mentioned by Honorable Machezi, Isifiso Setu and the Chief Ngonyama are not the only schools we visited. We visited more than 14 schools in that province this year, of which we were pleased to see that the province has improved with 5.7% in their national certificate results.
Kancane nje uxolo.
Hayi noma Russia hlala phansi man.
Honorable member.
Point of order.
Honorable member, please take your seat. Yes, honorable member, why are you rising?
Uthini ngelibode lapha enqeleni ikole zakho niseke baya boyibheka. Ingane ifundela odakeni nehlahla.
Honorable member, that's not a point of order, man.
Sithi sithethe sibonileyo sithethe sikuva ngawe. In Limpopo province, we visited there after the incident of burning of schools. It was pleasing to see how committed are the schools and principals to take the children through the exams. So thus, you can see the results of Limpopo, that the province was committed. In Mpumalanga, best practices in inclusive education were alarming. You know, Mpumalanga, you can go there and learn a lot. In Eastern Cape, with all the challenges that the Eastern Cape Department of Education was faced with, the portfolio of education recommended that the Department of Education in Eastern Cape should prioritize and speed up the pace in solving the problems in line with school readiness. Remember, it was the beginning of the year. These reports speak to the challenges as well as the steps the department will take moving forward. The challenges will be tackled by relevant stakeholders involved, and recommendations will be assessed and be implemented as they have been put forward in this. We are here to take the whole country forward, not the specific schools or the specific one, to take the whole the country forward. Comrade Machet, comrade, I will go back now to these comrades that do not attend the portfolio visits, like a comrade EFF, dictator now. If you want to be in education, join us so that you speak about the things that you know. Don't speak about the things that you have.
What's your point of order, honorable member?
You know, Deputy Speaker, I've been listening to this member in insensitiveness. She have never even mentioned a colleague that have passed on. So, and then secondly, we can sit on any committee and talk on any committee. That is just how diverse and educated EFF fighters and commissioners are. We don't need to sit on a specific committee. So rest assured, on any committee here, we will come to that platform and talk on it.
Honorable member, take your seat. Proceed, honorable member.
It's good to talk what you know. And
Deputy Speaker.
Talk what you know.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, honorable member.
I'm rising on a point of order. Deputy Speaker, as the EFF, we are grounded. We know the challenges
Honorable
faced
member,
by our
that's not a point of
communities
order, and I'm going to
schools
switch off your mic.
throughout the country.
That's not a point of order.
So we don't have to be there on your oversight.
Proceed, honorable member.
Honorable
Order,
Chair,
honorable members, order.
I would like to advise the comrades, if they have interest, take oversight so that you speak to the report. Don't speak to what you do Nicodemously when on your own time. Speak to the report so that we address you. We
Honorable
are
member,
talking
your
on
time has
schools
expired.
that we visited. So don't speak about what you don't know.
Honorable member, honorable members.
Deputy Speaker,
Yes, honorable member.
yeah, the member must stop lying to the House. We attend the oversight.
Honorable member, you are
We
not
do
allowed
go
to say
there.
members are lying.
No,
honorable
she
member.
must stop lying, but she was lying.
Honorable
That
member,
the EFF
honorable
is not
member, you can't
attending.
say a member
You
is
are
lying.
attending.
That's
She's
unparliamentary.
misleading the- No, she's lying.
Honorable member, withdraw
She
that.
must stop lying.
Honorable member, withdraw saying that the member, that's unparliamentary. That's unparliamentary, honorable member. Withdraw that.
Okay, Deputy Speaker.
Oh, honorable member, I don't hear what you're saying. Withdraw.
I say, okay, Deputy Speaker. Do you
Okay.
hear me now?
Okay, what?
I withdraw.
Thank you, honorable member. Please
Yeah.
take your seat. We appreciate that. Take your seat. Honorable members, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? Let me put the question again. Those in favor will say aye, and those against will say no. I think the ayes have it. Honorable members, the secretary will read the fifth order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on third quarterly report on performance of Department of Basic Education in meeting its strategic objectives for 2016-17.
Honorable members, I'm told that the chairperson or the representative will now speak to the report. Go ahead.
Honorable Mashavela, hello. We missed you so much. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In introducing the report, I would like to highlight the fact that as a portfolio committee, we have considered the above tabled report detailing the work and performance of the department for the year 2016 and 2017. As we well understand that it is our constitutional mandate as MPs to scrutinize, play oversight, and hold the executive to order or accountable. We have scrutinized the report, the third quarter report, and as a committee, we were in agreement that the report complies 100% with the statutory requirements of government, and it captures all the targets and objectives and indicators that the department has outlined in the APP, the sector-wide plan, and the other national objectives. As a committee, we are aware of the many challenges that are facing the department. However, we wish to know that we also appreciate the continuous efforts of the department to implement its program and plans, and we would like to congratulate them on the progress that has been made thus far in improving education for our children. We have noted that some of the targets and indicators were not fully met as planned, However, we have also noted that there are key achievements that they have made with regard to the following areas. In terms of early childhood education, training has been provided to district officials, about 116 district officials and general practitioners have been trained to acquire knowledge based on issues of early childhood education. On inclusive education, we appreciate the fact that the department has been able to facilitate a grant which will cater for learners, disabled learners with profound intellectual disabilities, which is a first in South Africa. And for us as the ANC-led government, we feel that the government has to be commended for that. In terms of rural education, we would like to commend the department for having introduced the rural education policy, wherein we have seen a lot of improvements taking place in terms of leveling the playing field in rural education setup, rural village, rural setups where education is taking place. In that case, we appreciate that a new directorate has been established to deal with issues of rural education, and a policy framework has been put in place and published for comment by the labor unions and the society at large. In terms of maths and science and technology, we want to appreciate the increase and the merging of the grants, the increase in the grants for maths and science and technology. However, we have also noted the fact that there has been a slight underperformance on this area, wherein there is a lot of shortage of maths and science teachers. The other area of achievement is on ICT provisioning in school. We would like to highlight the fact that we have noted the program using universal service and access obligation. We would like to say to the department that this program needs to be jacked up because it's part of Operation Pakisa. And government has committed itself to modernizing education. And as my colleague has already highlighted, Honorable Basson, that in Gauteng, they have accelerated the program through prioritization of ICT. We know that government responsibility is to make sure that they allocate the resources for this important function. But it has come to our attention that there seems to be a lag in terms of providing that necessary resource. Hence, many of the provinces still lag behind on the implementation of this matter.
Your time is expired.
I would like to say that we are very grateful of the work done, and therefore would like to recommend that the report be adopted. Thank you.
Any declarations from anybody?
Deputy Speaker,
Yes,
the EFF
ma'am.
would like to make a declaration.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Chairperson, as the EFF, we have long maintained that the state of our basic education is dysfunctional, and that the response of the department to the plethora of challenges facing basic education have been underwhelming. This report, as with many others, keeps on re-emphasizing our long-held view that the department lacked proper leadership with vision to ensure a solid educational foundation for our own children. From unmitigated corruption, which goes unpunished, as it happened with the Kari Gude program, to the incapacity of the department to monitor reimbursements for subsidized learners. From poor governance of schools as a result of the poor capacity of school governing bodies who lack proper mathematics education, particularly in rural schools. All this paints a picture of basic education department in a constant swim against the tide. The department is still unable to root out the phenomenon of employing unqualified teachers in rural areas. They are still unable to ensure that children have proper classrooms and proper learning materials such as textbooks, computers, and laboratories. The consequence of all this is the perpetuation of unequal opportunities between the children of the poor and overwhelmingly black people and those of the rich and predominantly white. Your failure to crack jobs for cash in KZN in particular by your own SADU is but one example. Without dealing with these structural challenges to our education, we can kiss the idea of radically transformed society a goodbye. The ANC is killing any hope that black people may have of eventually owning this country and also of ensuring that we produce informed society for the future. Through your incompetence and corruption, you are killing the future of this country. Therefore, it is in this particular context that the EFF rejects this report outrightly. Thank you.
IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The state of the education in KwaZulu-Natal requires a state of emergency. One, because the minister is not here, please convey the message that in some schools in KwaZulu-Natal, especially in Umkanyagote, might soon be closed because there is a lack of infrastructure. Toilets are full in Mtubatuba. The minister must make sure that he attends to that very seriously and very urgently. There are no new posts, Honorable Chair, created in KwaZulu-Natal. We have a list of more than 1,000 qualified educators who are unemployed because there are no new posts that are created by the department. To give a typical example, Honorable Speaker, when somebody goes to leave, the policy requires that if it is 30 days, that particular post requires a substitute. Just 2 days back, they have been given an instruction that no substitute post will be paid by the department because there is no money. This is merely because the Department of Education in KwaZulu-Natal is squandering monies in corruption, no new post, and the state of the schools requires emergent attention. Chairperson, this is not how we should go about improving the quality of basic education. We are failing in 2017, and we are setting ourselves up for failure in the sector-wide action plan in 2019 towards the realization of schooling in 2030. Our rural schools are still lag significantly behind their urban counterparts. Our rural education system is being predominantly characterized by a great many inequalities. Chairperson, our education, our children remain the country's best investment for a successful future. Let us strive to afford them every opportunity to do so. We accept this report.
NFP.
Deputy Speaker, the Department of Education has enormous responsibility to equip our children and young people with skills that will empower and capacitate them to survive and prosper in the altered world once they have completed their education. Sadly, we are falling far short of our stated objectives and goals, and the National Freedom Party share the view of many South Africans that our Department of Education is simply not delivering on its mandate in a way that can be said to be satisfactory. The NFP welcomes the report of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education tabled here, but we note with concern the extensive list of observations contained in the report and urge the department to interrogate these observations thoroughly. Of almost concern to us is the underspending of some programs, and in particular, the MST conditional grant. Deputy Speaker, if we are to give our children a fair opportunity to compete internationally in the adult world, then all efforts should be made to advance MST-related teaching. We believe that effective administrative management of these efforts should be a priority within the department. Unfortunately, the facts before us suggest otherwise. The NFP is concerned and alarmed that schools' performance and outcomes in rural areas appeared to be worse than in the urban areas. The NFP is driven by the desire for our children to receive quality education, and we have committed ourselves to pursue that goal with vigor. We believe that our rural schools are being neglected and marginalized as the department fails to ensure an equitable distribution of resources that will give all our children equal access to basic education. Unfortunately, this lack of focus on improving basic education in rural school is not an isolated blind spot of government. It is part of a general lack of social and economic development in our rural areas, which perpetuates rural poverty and will ultimately require a political solution. In conclusion, Chairperson, the NFP supports the report and recommends the recommendations of Portfolio Committee tabled. In particular, we support the recommendation of the Portfolio Committee that the department should continue to collaborate with the Department of Sports and Recreation to accelerate the transformation of sports in schools. However, we also urge the department to utilize these very same channels of cooperation to intensify efforts to bring sports infrastructure to all our schools, and in particular to fast-track such development initiatives in our rural schools. I thank you.
Thank you. DA, Honorable Ollis.
Thank you, Chairperson. We do, as the DA and I do personally, just express my condolences to the friends and family of Mr. Khoza, who passed away so tragically in that accident. I was sitting next to him when he did pass away, and thankfully I was injured, but I'm very blessed to have survived the accident and to be here today. It's my first opportunity back in Parliament, and just thank God that I was able to come through that. So we do express our condolences. In terms of these reports, we accept the reports. Many of them date to before the time I was on the committee. I'm a new member of the committee, having been moved to this portfolio. But there are just a couple of quick points I'd like to make. Number one, I think we need to, as a Parliament and as the Ministry, I would encourage them to review the quintile system. I was at a school this morning called the Good Hope School, and it is here in Cape Town, in the center of Cape Town, and because it's in the center of Cape Town, it's ranked as a quintile 5 school. But almost all of the children come from Khayelitsha, so their parents don't have the funds. And some friends that we know in Parliament have donated money to a feeding scheme to run that school to try and support it. But that's not government funding, that's private money. They're just trying to help and providing meals. Every morning they've been doing it for 12 months. But there's something wrong with that quintile system because those kids are from Khayelitsha. They can't afford to provide what is needed. And we need to perhaps review that quintile system. And we, as the DA, would like to just contribute to that debate. We think it's time we just had a discussion about that. And the second thing that I just want to make, point that I want to make, is that we are often using still the 2011 census figures when the funding is apportioned in terms of the provinces and the regions in South Africa. And there have been further updates on the 2011 census by Stats SA, which we should take note of. I think my colleague already mentioned that some provinces like Gauteng and the Western Cape have had an influx of people from other provinces, and that does affect the ability to provide quality education. So some of these things do need some thoughts in the future, but we do accept the reports. I thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, ANC. I think.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC raises to support the third quarterly report on the performance of the Department of Basic Education in meeting its strategic objectives for 2016-17. The Freedom Charter, Deputy Speaker, states that, among other pronunciations, that the doors of learning and culture shall be opened. The ANC has taken great strides in ensuring that all children have access to quality basic education. This report, Chair, reflects the true essence of the achievement of the ANC-led government in basic education. The ANC government has put in place policies and programs that assist in ensuring that all children receive a quality basic education, thus creating a powerful, well-rounded future leaders that will move South Africa forward. This report, Chairperson, shows the achievement of basic education in all 5 programs of this department. It shows the work of the ANC-led government in enhancing basic education in all of its spheres. Although the report shows targets which were partially achieved, most targets, Chairperson, were fully achieved by the end of the third quarter, and we're working on the rest of the targets. We do not set aside the challenges that were faced and urge the department to pay particular attention to the targets of electrifying all schools by the 21st of March 2018. The provision of nutritious meal needs to be dealt with in order to ensure that no child goes hungry at school. The ANC stands firmly for the recommendation that have been brought forward to transform sports in schools. The use of grants in an adequate and efficient manner, and the support of the learners who have been affected by the measure of the school. Deputy Speaker, let me try to assist Honorable Njomane what he has been struggling to mention here. We have a project or a program, Honorable Njomane, it is called Karigude Masifunde ngesizulu lesikhuluma so. Ku Honorable Ngwezi, I want to assure you, Honorable Member, that we are not planning to fail in 2018. But worry not, I will also try to assist you to understand more on this department where you are lacking. I will deal with that, I will be able to assist you. We have also had, Chairperson, the additions given by, from the NFP, and we have had them. We'll try to ensure that in discussion with them, we'll be able to deal with what they've been raising. And the ANC support this report, and I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, before I conclude this part of the work, let me also welcome Honorable Ollis on his hind legs back with us. I know that he aggressively willed himself out of hospital to be here. I wonder whether the doctors allowed him. I must still check that, Honorable Ollis. We also wish to wish speedier recovery to Honorable Majeke and Honorable Gina, who are recovering. Let them recover faster than they are. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read. Okay. There's a formal step I missed. You do go ahead, Chief Whip, on behalf of the Chief Whip. Move that we do that.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
We confirm that there is no objection. No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the last order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on South African Human Rights Commission's report on national investigative hearing into impact of protest-related action on right to a basic education in South Africa.
The chairperson will start, and please, members, you are now experienced, you've been long enough in Parliament since 2014. The little clock on your left, when it gets red, it means your time is expired. Stop suggesting that we are cutting your time. I'm speaking in general, okay? Honorable, please go ahead. Go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Portfolio Committee on Basic Education has received and considered the report by the South African Human Rights Commission on the impact of protest-related action on the right to basic education. As a committee, we have appreciated the work done by the Human Rights Commission in carrying out its mandate to promote human rights culture in the society, and more so that it emphasizes an assertion, our assertion as the Portfolio Committee, that education is not only a right, but it must be treated as a societal issue. During the interaction, the committee expressed regards and disappointment at the extent to which communities with genuine grievances targeted school children as easy targets and therefore use them as bargaining chips to resolve social issues or social service delivery related problems which do not practically rest with the Department of Basic Education. On that note, the Portfolio Committee has noted the key findings and recommendations of the national hearings that were held, and it is our belief that they must be considered and followed through. And those are lack of proper communication lines between the police and communities, safety of learners, educators, and the school infrastructure, the breakdown of leadership at local government level, lack of early warning systems, that the interministerial committee be established by the presidency to respond to the issues that have been raised, that all items residing with the Department of Basic Education must be dealt with expediently, and as a committee we are confident that already at that meeting that we held in March of this year, the Department of Basic Education presented a report of actions taken to resolve some of the issues that were highlighted in the report. It is our view that the Minister must work together with the Human Rights Commission to continue to engage, particularly around the in recrafting of some of the recommendations. And lastly, Deputy Speaker, that Cabinet should take responsibility, especially on matters that impact on other government departments and other layers of government, that is local government or provincial government. On that note, I recommend that the report be adopted. I thank you.
Let's hear declarations.
Yes, Deputy Speaker, the FF would like to make a declaration.
Okay. Go ahead, Honorable Member. She's not going to be heard by a mere change of number. It's not.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Chairperson, in the first instance, the economic freedom fighters is very sympathetic to the plight of many of our people who resort to protest to have their voices heard by the ruling party. People do not wake up and decide to engage in protest action. They do protest because they practically can no longer breathe as a result of government neglect, because of corruption by their leaders, and because government has proven over time that they only listen when people take to the streets. That these actions sometimes take extreme measures such as disruption of schooling and destruction of schooling infrastructure is also as a result of government ineptitude. At the school level, we welcome the recommendation of South African Human Rights Commission that the Department of Education must take the lead in protecting infrastructure and engaging with communities to ensure that basic teaching and learning continues even during protests. We are disappointed that both the Minister of Basic Education and the Portfolio Committee are of the view that the recommendations of the Human Rights Commissions are misdirected. The Human Rights Commission was dealing with the impact of these protests on basic education. So it should not have come as a surprise that the recommendations are focused on actions that must be taken by the Department of Basic Education, working with other departments. We acknowledge that no single department can deal with protests and their consequences, but were each department to do what is required, we would not have protests to begin with. The blame for all of this lies in the corruption, incompetence, and general lack of interest in the well-being of our people by our all departments. We therefore reject the report of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on this matter and urge both the committee and the department not to be denialist when it comes to addressing this very important matter. No, you must listen, you corrupt government. You thieves, you must listen. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Member, DA.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to say that we support the Human Rights Commission report and also the recommendation. Our only concern is the fact that what we wonder is the recommendation, will they actually be followed through by the department? As you might recall, the reason why the Human Resources decided to embark on this human rights research, actual research on protests, was because of what happened in Vuane, where 28 schools were burned down. And purely because there was a conflict between different communities within one area. And the schools were burned down because the community wanted to use that as a way for the government, which is the ANC government, obviously, to listen to their outcries. So as the Democratic Alliance, what we would like to say is this. If, for instance, you have public involvement, because there was a school recently when they just spent another school in Vuane, whereby the community was involved in building the school. So they came together with Lotto and another donor, and they took part in actually building the school. And what they did when there was a protest, they made sure that they protect the school. So one of the recommendations that we would like to make as a Democratic Alliance is that there has always, when we build a school or whatever decision that we make in an area, we need to make sure that the community, it is consulted, there's public communication that occurs, and that they are all on board in whatever decisions that we make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Member, IFP.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, every child in South Africa has the constitutional right to an uninterrupted basic education. Protest-related action now targets this right when it adversely impacts and affects a child's right to attend school and receive an education. There is no doubt about the terrible impact these protests have had on the education of thousands of pupils. The national hearing convened by the Human Rights Commission sought to explore ways in which the right to protest could be upheld, but to ensure that future protest action did not disrupt schools or deny any child the right to an education. We hear reports of nearly 63,000 learners being affected by the Vuwani district protest in April of 2016, with 29 schools being torched and 102 schools being disrupted. This disrupted the entire school year for these pupils, obviously affecting learning as well as year-end results. Honorable Speaker, this is just one example and one of the problems our children are having to face through no fault of their own. We are to blame and we must take full responsibility for our actions and ensure that any such project action is directly mitigated against in the near future. We cannot stifle the hope, dreams, and ambitions of our children through our own shortcomings. Children should not have to pay the price for their errors of the parents. The IFP supports the finding of the national hearing and thanks for the work the Commission has done and looking forward to the government acting resolutely in implementing and actioning the findings of the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, the National Freedom Party welcomes the report tabled here today on the South African Human Rights Commission's findings on the impact of the protest-related action on basic education. We note that the focus on the Commission's report was predominantly on Vuwani. The scale of disruption to schooling at Vuwani in 2016 was vast, within more than 52,000 learners affected. 29 schools were touched and vandalized whilst teaching at a further 102 schools in the area where there was disruption. Whereas the disruption at Vuwani was fierce, prolonged, and brutal, we should not lose sight of other disruptions which occur across the country almost on a daily basis, particularly disruption associated with service delivery protest. Unfortunately, the report of the Commission could do no more than deal with the aftermath of the disruption and not the cause of the disruption. When we look at the distribution of disruption affecting learners and school, we see that it occurs countrywide. As the Portfolio Committee has correctly pointed out in the report tabled here, in the most instances, these disruptions are not related to teaching or education, but come about as collateral damage in the community action that has its roots in dissatisfaction, which is political in nature. So, Chairperson, if the root cause of disruption at schools is to be addressed adequately, it is to the political arena which we have to turn for a solution to avoid protest-related disruption in our schools. Unfortunately, a culture of damaging state property has become entrenched in our social fabric as a means to protest, and people justify such destruction through saying that it is the only way to get government to listen to their grievances. Chairperson, herein lies the crux of the problem. We are stuck with a government that is increasingly becoming unresponsive to the needs of the people, a government that has lost touch with the people at the grassroots level. Many of these incidents of violence protests could have been avoided if government would just listen to the people when they have the grievances. But it's not happening. The sad part is that our children pay and will continue to pay a heavy price for government's lack of action. To conclude, with Chairperson, the NFP believes that there is a need to educate communities on the importance of education and to encourage communities to take ownership of schools. We owe it to our children
and to the future generation to ensure that our education system is providing each and every child with
Remember, your
qualification.
time has expired.
I thank you.
Honorable members, what's about? My right is very difficult. I tend to be left wing.
House Deputy Speaker, the ANC in the Portfolio Committee wishes to send its condolences to the family of the late Honorable TZM Koza, and also wish a speedy recovery to all the members who are injured, which are Honorable Machege and Honorable Gina. The ANC regards basic education as an apex priority. The education of all South African children is very important, as it will bring well-educated and capable leaders for our country. It is therefore very important to the ANC that schools remain safe and conducive for learning in all geographical areas. As the ANC will also believe in the safeguarding of human rights and therefore promote the mandate of the South African Human Rights Commission to promote respect for human and culture of human rights, to promote protection, development, and attainment of human rights, and to promote and monitor and also assess the observance of human rights. The ANC government takes the severity of the impact of protest-related actions on schools and learners very seriously. The banning of schools and thus disruption of learners' education is something that needs serious attention. As we are speaking now, there's an amendment bill which has been on South African School Act, which is at the hands of the cabinet for public comment, which is there to address the threats to learners, which we need every threat that is done to learners which will prohibit a learner to attend school be criminalized so that is stopped, be it a parent or any other person who is involved in the stopping of learners to attend school. We also urge the Office of the President, not the DPE, to set up an interministerial committee in order to face issues by disgruntled communities, in order to ensure that protests do not become violent or rather affect learners and their well-being. It is true, EFF, it is very much true that it is not the schools that are la aqala khona ama-protest, akusinga phakathi kwey'koleni. Protests stem from outside the issues of the schools, and then they come to affect the well-being or the running of the schools. They stem from issues that affect different departments. They are never education sector related. Schools infrastructure is seen as a soft target, and it is very important that this is addressed and dealt with. The ANC looks at the DBE as the victim of the protest actions, not as the perpetrator. It is not responsible for aspects of service delivery that provoke protests from communities. This results in learners used as pawns by adult community members to target school infrastructure. The ANC stands by the recommendations made by the Portfolio Committee and urge the review of some of the SAHRC recommendations, as they are really misdirected and need to be directed to the relevant departments through the presidency in order to ensure that schools stop being target of service delivery protests. We mean departments like COCTA, departments like SAPS, departments like Public Works, departments like that one of intelligence. The ANC support this report. Asiyekeleni lokuba dingongoni, sibile kuphapha siyele nale. Siyayazi inkinga kokuthi inkinga kahle kahle ayikho lapha ya ezikolweni. Tikolo nje ti affectwa ngoba kwanine la eceleni. Niyahamba nitshele labantu le ukuthi buyani phela nto protesta nibuye nivale amagede etikolo. Nine, more especially the EFF. We will appreciate ukuthi you take education very seriously. Thank you very much.
Why are you running, Chief? Go back.
Honorable
I want to
members,
ask you something.
Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Chief Whip.
I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
Any objections? No objections, agreed to. Honorable members, let's once more communicate our condolences to the Khoza family and regard the debate on education today that has taken place as a tribute to his contributions as a member of parliament, a public representative, and we hope that his insights will continue to inspire the work of the entire committee. Thank you very much. The House is adjourned.